Good evening. I'm Darcy Griffith, the music director for Classical 90.7 KVNO here in Omaha, and I am privileged to be joined this evening by three wonderful talents. Thank you all for joining me. I have in your lower right our conductor, Connor Gray Covington. Thank you for being here, Connor. On the left, Karen Slack is joining us, the soprano featured on the program, and our baritone on the upper left, Craig Irvin. Welcome all.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
It's interesting this time that we're going through right now. Things are starting to open up a little bit. People are getting opportunities to perform live. And this is new for many of us as we're starting to return to the stage here. Maybe each of you can take a moment to introduce yourselves, talk about your career a little bit, and then maybe what this is like for you as we re-enter live performance. Connor, would you like to start? Oh, yeah, Karen, go ahead.
My name is Karen Slack. I'm coming to you from Philadelphia, and very excited to be making my debut with the Omaha Symphony. Let's see. This time, well, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about my background. Originally from Philadelphia, went to the Curtis Institute of Music, did my undergrad and my grad there, then did my young artist the San Francisco Opera and the Adler Fellowship, and started singing. But I've always sung pretty much my entire life, and I am going into my 18th season of singing professionally.
It's amazing. Well, welcome early to Omaha. We're glad to have you. Looking forward to hearing you sing. Have read and heard many wonderful things. So really looking forward to that. Craig, why don't you talk a little bit about your career next? Introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, this is also my first time with the Omaha Symphony. I was in Omaha about 2 years back doing, I was in Faust with the Omaha Opera. I've also been singing most of my life since I was in church choir as a kid. I've traveled the country and the world singing opera. Mostly, I've done a little bit of just orchestral symphonic work, but mostly it's been opera.
Excellent. And you, as I understand, don't live too far from here.
No, I'm very close. Did it snow there today? I'm in Iowa, right outside of Des Moines, and it snowed here in April today. Did it snow in Omaha too?
Yes, I don't think very many people were happy about that. No. I'm Canadian, and I wasn't even happy about it. So this is not good.
No, it's all gone, but the memory is still there that it snowed today. So.
Exactly. Well, welcome. We're so glad to have you in this collaborative concert between Opera Omaha and the Omaha Symphony and our conductor, Connor Gray Covington. Connor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career, what you've been up to?
Sure. I have not been conducting all my life, but I started when I was 18, which is pretty young for a conductor. And I grew up in East Tennessee, was a violinist, but knew by the time I started undergrad that I wanted to conduct. And I've been all over for school and for work. I also am a graduate of the Curtis Institute, and I'm currently in my fourth and final season as the associate conductor of the Utah Symphony and the principal conductor of the Deer Valley Music Festival. And I'm coming to you from Boston, which is where my wife lives. She just started her medical residency out here. And this is also my first time with the Omaha Symphony. I actually had a concert scheduled with them for February for the chamber series, but I think because of the pandemic and the restrictions in that smaller hall, they had to move it. And then I think late January, this concert came open. And they were like, "Well, why don't we just have you do this one instead?" And I am really thrilled to be able to do, especially this repertoire. With the Omaha Symphony and Craig and Karen as well, because it's really going to be such a fun program.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. There are selections by Bizet, Chausson, Mahler. How about we take a moment for each of you, Karen and Craig, to talk a little bit about the repertoire, and Connor, feel free to chime in as you wish here as we kind of walk our way through the program. I believe we open with an overture of Mozart from Così fan tutti. So a little bit of something for everyone in this program, opera lovers and symphonic lovers alike, I think, in that regard. But then we move to the other selections. So I don't know, Karen, would you like to maybe go first and talk a little bit about the Chausson?
Sure, I'll talk briefly about it. It is a stunning piece that I have been dying to sing for a very long time. It is a mammoth, as we all say. There are two poems written by Maurice Bouchard and who was a dear friend of oh my gosh, the composer just slipped of Chausson. Sorry, it's been a long day, but Le Fleur de Lilas, the water flowers, and La Mort de l'amour. I'm sorry. La mort de l'amour, the death of love. So basically, these poems are about love and how the flowering, the beautiful, the promise of love and the beginnings of love, and how by the end of the poem, how love dies and withers like the flowers. He uses a lot of nature, talks a lot about the sea, talks a lot about the sky, uses flowers, the lilacs, roses, water lilies, all of these symbols to symbolize various parts of love. It is the height of romantic French music and very influenced by German music, particularly Wagner. Chausson was, as many of the French composers were going to Bayreuth during this time period and going to see all of Wagner's works, Parsifal and Flying Dutchman. And this piece is very reminiscent of, I say, Tristan and Isolde, all the chords, the melodic changes and shifts. But it's just a stunning piece. It's just butter, it's chocolate, it's all of those things.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, the text painting in it is exquisite. And just the text of the poems themselves are so evocative. And Chausson does such a beautiful job of portraying that in the music. And I also feel like it's this unbelievable melding of French, kind of a French aesthetic and a German aesthetic, because harmonically it sounds very much like Wagner, but from a kind of orchestration point of view, it's very kind of early Debussy, turn of 20th century French music. So it's really a fascinating piece. And as we were chatting a little bit before we started, I had never heard the piece before until Karen suggested it just a few months ago, and I'm so thrilled to be doing it for the first time.
It's really, really a gorgeous piece. I'm looking forward to hearing it as well. And for your piece, Craig, you are doing some Mahler, I believe.
Yes. So this is actually my first time doing it, and I didn't actually know it before it was suggested by the symphony. I don't know a lot of rep. The symphonic or the art song rep isn't really what I've been around the most. So when they said, "Can you sing this?" I said, "Yes, sure, anything. Just let me sing. I haven't sung much in a year, so please let me sing." And then when I started to listen to it, it blew me away, and I'm so excited to get to sing this because it's such a spectacular piece. Similar to Karen's piece, it's about the end of love. It doesn't talk about the happy beginning stuff. The first line of the first song is, "When my beloved gets married, it will be my nightmare," because it won't be to him. And he spends the 4 songs going through a full journey of depression and sadness and loss and attempting to get out of it and attempting to see the beauty of the world, but realizing that his soul has been crushed. And the third song, which is my favorite because it's big and loud, it starts, he says, "I have a flaming dagger in my chest." And and it talks about how painful and how much agony he's in. And one of my favorite lines in the whole cycle, because it's a big high note that I get to sing, so it's a lot of fun, but also because of the text Mahler used, comes at the end of the third song, where he's talking about wishing he was dead. And instead of just saying, I wish I was dead, he says, I wish I was laying on a black pyre and I never opened my eyes again. And it's just that the imagery of that, especially the way it's set, is, I think, spectacular. And then at the end of the piece, he finds peace. He in my mind, in the fourth song, he says, I'm leaving to go into the dark night. And to me, what the text is saying and what the music is telling me is he's going to kill himself. He's going to jump off a cliff. And the orchestra's in C major, and it's fighting back and forth between major and minor through this section. And then it comes to a point where it changes, and there's some beauty, and he talks about the linden tree, and he goes over and sleeps under it and says, for the first time I've slept. And he says, I don't know how it's going to be okay, but I know that it's going to be okay. And it's a full journey. And I love the fact that Mahler wrote the text himself. He wrote his own text because a soprano had broken his heart, and that's how he dealt with it. He was writing from his own emotions, which I think imbibes this piece with so much beauty and deep feeling and power. My only regret after doing this is that he never wrote an opera. I sing this 15-minute piece, and I wish he had written a full opera, because that's what I normally do. And I can't imagine the journey he could send you on in a full opera. It would have been one. He conducted a bunch of opera, but he just never wrote one.
Yeah, that contrast between what both of you have done traditionally in the past, singing opera, which isn't really happening just yet.
Not much.
But now doing things with orchestra, how is that different, performing wise and collaboratively, than what you normally do?
Karen, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, well, I actually have had a really wonderful career and been able to sing a lot with symphony. Verdi Requiem, Beethoven 9, all of the Mahler 2, for all of that work as a soprano. I've been lucky enough to be able to do that repertoire, and then lots of opera, of course, which is the main way. But my passion is always recital concert work, and people always get surprised because I'm such a skilled actress on the stage, but I sing a lot of the big repertoire, Tosca, Aida, Trovatore, those things which require you to be strong actors as well. But I find that the intimacy of the recital and the intimacy of the connection between the orchestra and the maestro and you there, to me, is heaven. You don't have the costume and props and all of the people. I really enjoy the symphonic world, and it's a shorter period of time being away from home.
Yes.
It's always, wonderful when you spend so much of your life on the road. My husband's like, when are you coming back? I'm like, I'll be back on Sunday. And he's like, what?
See,
Again,
my wife's usually asking when I'm leaving, especially this last year. I've been here most of the time, and she just wants me to go half of the time.
Yeah, well, it's just us and the cat. So, But I always like it, and also because symphonic audiences don't always get to hear singers often, and so it's always a big treat. You always feel like people are excited to have you come into the space. But I'm sure many opera singers are, they just haven't had the experience of doing the symphonic as much.
I've loved the symphonic work I've done. I've also done the Verdi Requiem, Britten Requiem, which is a spectacular piece that I was so lucky to get a chance to get into kind of last minute, which Also, that's not the piece you want to get into last minute. But anyway, and I did the Rachmaninoff the Bells also. So those are the main, which was my first Russian, which was also exciting. But what I love about working with the symphony and with opera is the energy that comes from the orchestra, especially with them being on stage with you. The combination of so many artists working together to make a piece, to touch the audience, to impact the audience in a way. One of the most difficult things about a piece like this for me is there isn't the set. There isn't the costume, there isn't the lighting, there isn't the staging. It's only the words and the music. And within those words and music, I, as an artist and as a performer, have to convey the meaning of all of it just by mostly standing still, which is a wonderful challenge, an exciting challenge, but still a challenge, because it's just you. I was talking to my coach the other day about a memory. I had a recital I did in undergrad at college, and I was a junior, and it was a half recital. At the end of it, I did the Taubenpost, and I was kind of nervous. And within doing it, I started staging it, like walking around the stage, looking for the Taubenpost, for the pigeon, for the bird bringing me the message. And I basically ran across the entire stage. And Dr. Larson, the head of the program, came up to me afterwards and said, "That was wonderful. Never do that again. Like, just stand still." Because it's such a different piece and a different challenge to stand still and just give the words and the music.
Yeah, so for both of you, basically this was an entirely new repertoire for both of you, I understand. So it'll be a bit of an adventure. Connor, can you talk a little bit about the repertoire and if this is kind of new for you as well? It's a wonderful collaborative experience, certainly, with the orchestra and soloists.
Sure. So yeah, I guess I've never done Cozy Overture before, so that's new for me. I've done a lot of Carmen before, but this is basically kind of a suite that I put together, it's 7 movements from the 2 suites. So I kind of interspersed things together. And as I mentioned earlier, I had never even heard the Chausson before until I guess it was January, and was beyond excited to have the opportunity to do it. And the Mahler is a piece that I've wanted a chance to do for quite a while, and was, we were kind of talking about that it's a collaboration between the symphony and Opera Omaha, and we already had 2 great soloists, and I said, well, why don't we make it kind of a opera program that highlights the symphony as well? And so it actually started with the Chausson, and then I always kind of wanted a chance to do the Mahler, and I wanted something short, energetic, and fast.
For our viewers this evening, it's the Songs of a Wayfarer. We've been talking a lot about the Mahler, but people know what we're talking about.
Yes, Mahler Songs of Wayfarer and the Chausson Poème de l'amour et de la mer, poem of love and the sea. And so it's just, most of these are new pieces for me as well, and I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to do them. And when we were talking about the program at the beginning, and they were talking about the kind of instrumentation limitations, I was like, wait a second, we can have trombones? This is fantastic, because as I've been told in the hall, you guys have basically the winds and brass are able to sit up kind of is it a choir loft?
Yeah, there's a loft around the top back of the stage, so the brass are elevated up above.
Which
best seat in the house, I think.
Opens up enormous amounts of possibilities, because most other orchestras right now don't have the capability to do either the Chausson or the Mahler, based on kind of the safety restrictions that we're working with, including us in Utah. So it was really exciting to have that leeway to program.
Yeah, and in terms of that, I certainly haven't seen any other programming of that scale that's happening right now. So it's really wonderful. I'm curious, from a collaborative standpoint, as a conductor, when you're working with orchestra versus singers, if you can talk a little bit about that, Connor, and then maybe I'd love to hear, because both of our soloists have so much experience performing, maybe a couple of war stories from your time on stage. You know, maybe just put that in your hat and think about it for a moment while Connor shares. I'd just love to hear a little bit about your experiences on stage.
So yeah, I love working with singers. I've had some opera experience, not as much as I would like, but I have a lot of, I feel like, sympathy for singers, because they're really at the mercy of their body when they're singing. And I feel like the job of a conductor when accompanying any soloist, be it a vocalist or a violinist or cellist, whatever it may be, is to create an environment in which the soloist feels as comfortable as possible, because that way he or she can perform to the best of his or her ability. But with singers, you have to, I feel like, be a little bit more sensitive, in the sense that, again, they're at the mercy of their body and their breath. And sometimes different nights are different and different places are different. And you have, if they have a long note, and you have to be able to hear when, oh, maybe they're struggling a little bit, I need to move it along. Or they're feeling really good and they want to stretch something out. You have to be able to hear and understand that and allow them the space to do that. And I was really lucky to have worked for 2 years at the Curtis Institute with Yannick Nézet-Séguin, who's the music director of the Met. And he is really unbelievable at being sensitive to singers. And I talked with him a lot about that and understanding what you need to do to create an environment in which they can sound their best. So I think it requires a lot of sensitivity and listening, and also kind of feeling nonverbal signals that a singer might be sending to you, and reacting to those signals with the orchestra.
It's a much more kind of yeah, it's a much more sensitive, collaborative approach, I think, in terms of the process. I can only imagine, I'm just an oboist stuck back in the middle of the orchestra, but when you're out front and center, it's something entirely different.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, for me as a conductor, I think my job with any soloist is to make that person feel comfortable, and with and that requires a certain level of sensitivity, but with singers, it's even more so. For instance, in Utah, we deal with this a lot because the elevation is quite a bit higher. So a lot of times when singers come in, if they're doing an opera, they're usually there for longer and they get more time to get used to it. But if they're coming in just for a week, sometimes some of them can really struggle with the altitude. So a tempo that they rehearsed at sea level might need to be quite a bit faster at 4,000 feet above sea level, because the oxygen is less. And
yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit from our soloist standpoint. What are your preparations like when you're getting ready to, go to a place to sing? Certainly elevation is a very valid concern. What else do you have to face when you're looking at preparing for a role?
Allergies. All sorts of things. Any sort of sickness. One of the things I hate about being a singer is a runny nose can cost me thousands of dollars, or just a painful week of recovery after I sing on that runny nose, because I need to make that money. it is a struggle when your instrument is your body. When you can't take out a new bow or get a new mouthpiece or an entire a new double reed, when your instrument is just your body, it can be it's stressful. But then again, you don't have to carry anything around. That helps.
To the luggage fees.
Yeah, pretty much what Craig said. But well, I would say cueing is very important.
That's true.
And breathing along with us. And so I don't mind a maestro even mouthing us, whatever the case may be, depending on what the piece is, depending on the situation. But I did a whole opera, a concert opera. It was my debut, and it's Scottish opera, and the conductor didn't look at me once. He just looked at the score. He didn't look at the orchestra. He didn't look at anybody. He just didn't cue anybody. So that was interesting. So I will say cueing is important. But ideally, as a singer, we have so many stresses that we don't even acknowledge the fact that yes, we carry our instrument, but if we have a fight with our partner, our husband, our wife, if we're staying in a place where there's a cat or a dog and we're allergic to it, if we have family, emotional things affect your instrument as well, and so we carry this thing around with us, but we're also carrying our souls and our hearts, our minds, and then we're expected to go out there and deliver. Oftentimes, especially the repertoire that Craig and I sing, these very emotional, dramatic, things, and so I think so. As I've gotten older and gotten through this career, I've become a lot less judgmental of other singers and other artists in a way, because I've gone through my own experience. They're not judgmental. That's not what I want to say, because I'm someone who loves artists and I love singers. But when I come into a space with another artist and there's tension, there's stuff there, understanding and being empathetic to people and the needs of singers. People think, singers are so, we need so much, and we're sensitive, and we're so, soft in a way. And that's just not true. It's just that we can't everywhere, everything. And we are the last defense. Like, if the production doesn't work, if the conductor sucks, sorry, Connor, not you. They blame the singer. As if it's our fault that we get to wear a hideous costume that is not flattering, or if the conductor was conducting too fast or too slow, or the costume weighed 18 pounds, and whatever the case may be. And so it don't cry for me, Argentina, but you know what I mean. Like, people don't often give us the we get critiqued very harshly sometimes, unfairly.
I think that's very, very true, and it's important to what you said about being on stage. At the end of the day, if something is the conductor's fault, I mean, people in the audience probably don't know that. They just know that Violetta missed her entrance,
right?
Or, so because at the end of the day, they're the ones on stage. So I think kind of getting back to having sensitivity for that and just being there for. I promise I will look at both of you, and I do get lots and lots of cues.
I love that. We're all new here, so we're all in the trenches together, right?
Building some good trust in the rehearsal process already. It's good to see. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful artistic collaboration. I'm definitely looking forward to it for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about what things are looking like for the future for all of you. Certainly there's this engagement here in Omaha, but are things starting to look up in terms of your careers, the pandemic, all of these things that are starting to look like they're coming back? But what is your sense of things as you're in your respective parts of the country?
Do you want the honest answer? Which is no. I don't know necessarily when my next thing. Actually, it's not true. I don't have anything for the next 7 months, I guess, on the books yet. Now, Connor was talking earlier, either before we started or during, I don't remember, about different companies that are now realizing, oh, we're performing in July or we're performing in June. We don't know what yet, but we're doing something. So hopefully something will fall into place. I have actually a lot of faith that something will fall into place. I actually, during the pandemic, had a very unexpected opportunity to work with a crossover trio. So I started working with a crossover trio called the Serenade, SERENAD 3 at the end. You could tell your Alexa device to play the Serenade 3 because Alexa thinks we're called the Serenade 3, even though it's the Serenade with a 3 at the end. And so I know I'll be recording some more music with them this July, but that's been a wonderful outlet for some really, I think, powerful and great music. And the two guys that I'm working with are one is one of my best friends, and another is a new friend who's only 25. So I get to be constantly reminded how old I am by him. But it's a great group of people to work with, and hopefully something falls into place for us this summer as well. So right now I'm walking on a wobbly bridge that hopefully leads to somewhere.
Yeah.
Karen, you?
Well, oh my gosh, where do I even begin? Craig's story is a lot of people's story. It's a great percentage of singers, of artists in general, particularly in classical music. The reason why I'm fumbling over my words, through this interview is I've had a full day because in this pandemic, as many other Black artists and during the pandemic, during all the racial awakening, those of us who are more established and seen in the industry in a way have picked up various artistic director positions and leadership positions outside of singing. When companies looked around and they said, "Oh, we have no diversity, we have no people of color, we have no women," all of these things, and all of our phones were ringing to be on panels and discussions about race in the classical music, and all of the advocacy work that many of us have been doing behind the scenes became in the forefront. And so I have been, between having created my own Facebook live show, which never was intended to be a thing, Kiki Conversations became a thing because I speak the truth and I lead in that. And so I started having hard conversations and wonderful conversations over a virtual glass of wine. And I built this whole audience with artists of all conductor. I haven't had a conductor on yet, Connor. So singers and composers and directors, and every Thursday I would go live on Facebook in the middle of this pandemic. And then when George Floyd was murdered, I was able to have other types of conversations about this issue, and it kind of exploded and expanded. And I got a call from Portland Opera to be the artistic advisor there. Never sung on that stage ever in Portland. And the Banff Center, one of my wonderful friends who's the director there for the opera department, called me and said, "Can you help us diversify our program?" And as well, and I wasn't singing, it was a couple virtual things here and there, but not much. And so I have been extremely busy since doing things outside of singing and building my skill set and fast track learning how to be an administrator in this, which is something that I always wanted to do. When I was done singing, I wanted to go behind the scenes. I didn't necessarily want to teach voice, but I wanted to be the thing that I did not see and experience in the industry. And as well as now, every time I was doing a new project, it was something new. Like the Chausson is new. I did a one-woman show, Driving While Black, which is a new opera that was written for urban arias, which is going to be a film that debuts next week. And another project
where's that debuting? Sorry to interrupt, but where's that debuting? How can we see that?
Online. Urban Arias is a wonderful group out of DC. They called me to film the one woman opera, Driving While Black, DWB. And so I had to learn it and record it and then film it, which of course, we don't do that in our industry. We don't do film, it's not what we do. And so I am exhausted. like many artists of color, particularly Black artists during this time, so many of us have been grinding for this industry to be better in a way. Now, what I have in the future, of course, our schedules after the pandemic, everything just was like it would magically drifted away. And some things are coming back. Sometimes I'm getting some calls to come do some things here and there. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to recoup so much of what was lost, my livelihood. But it's been a time. So just keep us in your prayers and support anybody who's watching this, support artists who are out there still, in the virtual space, particularly in the virtual space. And I know there's so many offerings at this point. It's too much. It's almost too much. To take in. You miss so many things. You want to support everyone, but we need you. Support your home team, and put $10 on a virtual thing if you see something, $15, whatever that is, whatever you have, because we all need the support.
Now, Karen, just out of curiosity, are you going to continue the conversations with Kiki videos on Facebook Live? Because those have been, I've seen not all of them, but I've definitely seen a couple handfuls, and they're fantastic. Those are available for people to watch now?
Oh,
right?
yeah, we're on YouTube. We're on YouTube. I got a channel, and I'm going to keep doing them. And when they, I'm sad that we have such a short time, and because we're in COVID, because I want to do them live. I will do them live. Not want to do them live, and I'm going to expand it, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to bring classical music and all of our glory to the masses. Kiki Conversations with a K. We're on YouTube. We are on Facebook, on my Karen Slack fan page. But
and we have links here in the chat too, so if people want to check it out there.
Awesome.
Also, Driving While Black links there as well. So.
Yes, but I want to talk to as many people as I can.
I'm more than happy to be the first conductor on your show. Just throwing that out there.
All right. It's a date.
That's wonderful. Wow. So many things. I think this period has been such a time of transition for everyone, whether we wanted it or not, in terms of learning a new skill set or just, really being resourceful about finding ways to connect with people. And I think that's fantastic, Karen, what you're doing. I have not seen any of Kiki Conversations, but I definitely will check it out. I'm looking forward to catching some of those. So congratulations on all of your new ventures. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I had a final, question just to expand on the Bizet a little bit, the Carmen suites that you put together, Connor. You referenced it just briefly in an earlier conversation. Can you talk a little bit about how you selected these different movements for the program? I think it's the closing kind of orchestral work on the program. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and why you selected those particular movements from the different suites.
Well, when we were first talking about the program and them telling me it's a collaboration with Opera Omaha, and so I said, well, is this a Omaha Symphony subscription concert, or is it more of an opera? Like, who's it for? And they're like, well, it's a little bit of both. And I said, well, why don't we just make it a kind of a operatic program that happens to feature the orchestra quite a bit as well, because obviously the orchestra plays a big role in opera. And so the Bizet, I selected 7 movements from the 2 suites, and I basically kind of tried to put them together just to balance things out in terms of not having, basically from a simplistic standpoint, just kind of slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast. And I think, a lot of it's 7 movements, but I think in total it's only 17 or 18 minutes. So a lot of them are very short. But I think one of the amazing things about doing several movements of just really short, 7 really short movements, is that you really kind of understand and appreciate how many unbelievable tunes are in that one opera. And a lot of which I think the audience will realize, oh, well, I know that song. I didn't know that came from Carmen. Everything from the Seguidilla to the Habanera to the Toreador song. It's yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun, and it's really just kind of a showcase for the orchestra after 2 great showcases with the Chausson and the Mahler for Karen and Craig.
Well, and the theme across the program seems to be composers that should have lived longer. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
You know, I mean, you were speaking earlier, Craig, about you know, the Mahler, you know, and if he would have written an opera, you know, Chausson was just starting to have this amazing career and had a very unfortunate end between a bicycle and a brick wall. Not a good way to go, I imagine. But you know, just beautiful, beautiful music from all of them, and you know, unfortunately, kind of short careers in terms of that. So, looking forward to it very much.
Absolutely. Is this something we should visit? Someplace we should visit? I know we have limited time, but maybe one place we should visit in Omaha.
Oh, I would say definitely the Old Market area. That's a really fun kind of historic area of the town. You know,
that's
cobblestone streets and that kind of thing. Great restaurants down there as well. The zoo is a really big attractor if you're a fan of animals. It's really one of the best, I think, in the nation. I'm trying to think what else. There are a lot of really great areas. Omaha, of course, is known because it has more restaurants than people. So support your local restaurateurs.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of great chefs in the area for sure. So
it's Brickyard Brewery too, right?
Yeah,
Brickyard Brewery.
There are a couple different breweries and distilleries in the area. I would recommend Bizet, a couple of other places downtown, Le Bouillon. It depends what kind of cuisine you enjoy. Yeah, so I'm not going to let Karen and Craig off the hook because we haven't heard any war stories as yet. I got to get one from each of you at least, and possibly Connor as well. Connor, I'm sure you have a couple, like cueing the soloist, and they're, you know,
and they're still in their dressing room.
Right. Well, outside of the tenors always being a pain in the, I don't know if you can curse, ass, and you know, generally tenors are always very interesting, but I don't have very many war stories. I do have a story. I made my surprise Met debut. I was covering. It's always a good story to tell, to encourage people. Like, you just never know when you're going to get the opportunity to do something really significant. But I was covering Verdi's Louisa Miller at the Met, and everyone thinks I was second cover, but I was first cover. But it was very early in my career. They didn't want to put anybody on that like hadn't actually, you know, sung professionally, which is always strange. Like, they gave me the contract anyway. You know, I was fresh out of Young Artist, but anyway. So I got a chance to sing my debut, and then I did 2 more performances because the soprano was really, really sick. And so the third performance, it was the broadcast performance, and I almost totally, like, you know, face planted on the floor. I tripped down the steps, and you could hear the audience gasp. You could hear the, like, you know, the chorus kind of gasp, because they thought I was just gonna face plant right on the stage of the Met, you know. But I caught myself, and I, like, you know, bounced up and just started singing, and I was so nervous because it was the broadcast, and I think that I needed, God kind of might have pushed me and said, "Girl, get it together." Get yourself together. But interestingly enough, the tenor fell. And he did
that stage.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing was weird, but he fell, twisted his ankle, and had to do the rest of the performance like declining health. And so he wound up at the end of the act 3, he had a cane and he couldn't move. And so we're singing, staging apart from each other because he couldn't move because his foot was all messed up. So
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
it was an interesting performance.
So the near fall snapped you out of it and you were able to recover and focus.
And pass it on to the tenor, like, a good soprano does.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks, Karen, for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Connor, Craig, anything?
I have two that quickly come to mind. One, I lived in Orlando, Florida. I was with the Orlando Opera resident artist, and then had to work at Disney World, because if you live in Orlando, I think by law, somebody has to work at Disney World in your family. And I got the opportunity to do Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, the live on stage version at Disney Hollywood Studios. And it was a great experience. I got to do that show over 700 times for over 1 million people. However, even though you've done the show 400 or 500 times, they'll still give you notes about something. Like they'll have someone come and watch the show every couple months, and they'll give you notes, mainly for the dancers, but also for the singers. And I got a note in between 2 performances, because we do 5 in a day, 3 to 5. And the director said, when you come at the dancers, there's a beast. He's got fangs, razor sharp ones. Come in with your arms up like this, because I'd always thought he's got fangs, razor sharp ones, and he wanted me to come like this. So I put that little Post-it note in my brain for the next performance in about 45 minutes. And so I went out, and at the point where I was about to sing that little Post-it note popped up in my mind, and I thought, oh yeah, they want to do this. The problem is, it's a strophic song, Kill the Beast, and the second verse is, there's a beast, one as tall as a mountain. And for, 300 or 400 performances, I had said those words when I did this motion, which came natural. So when I did that motion, I sang the wrong verse. And so I knew right away, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm on the wrong verse, I'm on the wrong words. So I'm trying to think backwards to what the words are supposed to be while still singing and moving and acting. And I start and I click into what I was supposed to be on. But then one of the dancers thought I had messed up and gone back. So the dancer started feeding me the words that I had been singing wrong. And that just made my mind blow up. And in front of 2,000 people, I just started singing neutral vowels, like for what felt like 5 minutes, but it was 10 seconds. But I had nightmares for days after that. And the mic technician came to me afterwards and said, was there something wrong with the mic during that part? And I'm like, yes, let's just say yes, it was the mic's fault. So forgetting words on stage, especially when you're singing in your native language, is a nightmare. But then hearkening back to what we talked about earlier with our body being our instrument, and this is actually an Omaha opera story. When I did Valentin with Opera Omaha, the death scene of Valentin is fantastic. It's great music, and it's emotionally powerful, and the staging that we did was great, and I loved it. The problem was I was having a lot of drainage, a lot of allergies that I was dealing with, and I'm laying on the ground singing this big scene, and I've got just mouthfuls of nasal drainage coming up. So in between, I'm coughing, and I'm using that to make it look like I'm dying, because I felt like I was dying, because my mouth, I just kept coughing it up. I almost spit it out on the stage at one point, but then I'm like, no, can't do that. That would not work. So I swallowed it back down, came in a beat late. But it's one of the difficulties of dealing with our bodies being our instrument is sometimes it doesn't work right. It doesn't work the way you want it to. But I was also able to use that coughing and that emotion, that fear that was in me to help interpret the moment. So that was one of the fun parts of it.
That's part of the live performance, right?
It is absolutely part of the live performance.
Keeping your composure in spite of it all. Mm-hmm. Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Craig. All right, Connor.
So I think actually, speaking of, vocalists and altitude, so in in the summer in Utah, our summer home is in Deer Valley at the Deer Valley Music Festival, and they set up a stage at the bottom of the ski slope, and people sit up on the skis. I mean, it's one of the most spectacular
cool.
venues in the country. But because it's 45, 50 minutes or so away from downtown Salt Lake and our hall, which is where we rehearse, we don't have rehearsals up there actually. And a lot of people are very like, what, you don't rehearse at the venue? But the orchestra's very used to it, so we kind of make it work. But I remember a couple summers ago, it was actually a Disney kind of show. And so, you know, Salt Lake is about 4,000 feet above sea level, which is already pretty high. And then you go to 8,000 feet like that afternoon / evening. And we were doing kind of a Disney show, and there were several singers, and we had this sub drummer who, you know, if you know anything about playing in an orchestra, if you do have a drum set, the conductor has no control. The drummer controls the orchestra. And this guy just he could not keep tempo, and he slowed down. And he was right in front of me. And I could hear the singers behind me dying because they had come up 4,000 feet just that day after probably being at sea level just a few days before. And eventually I just had to, and the orchestra, who knows me very well, was doing their very best to try to follow me, but the drummer just would not move. And so, yeah, I've never been angrier coming off a stage than that. And it takes a lot to get me angry, but I could, you know, I was trying to be sensitive and help the singers out behind me, but this drummer had other ideas, and he was in control. And yeah, so again, having sensitivity for altitude for singers is a very important thing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that everyone that is watching this evening will come and see what sort of drama ensues on stage. Hopefully not too much of anything. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful performance. Bizet, Mahler, and Chausson. We have 2 performances at the Holland Center, April 23rd, which is Friday evening, and the 24th, both at 7:30 p.m. And my thanks to all of you this evening for joining us. Thank you for your willingness to travel and come to Omaha and work with this wonderful collaboration between Opera Omaha and the Omaha Symphony.
Thank you for not canceling.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for not
I can't wait to make noise in front of people again. I'm so excited.
I know we all are as well. So thank you so much for your time. Tickets are on sale at omahasymphony.org.